Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our show. We have a special show today. We have Sharona Whisler, the Executive Director of ZOA Zionism of America, Zionist of America, executive branch in Florida. Today we'll be discussing about, of course, Zionism, about leadership of Zionism, what makes a Zionist, and why Zionism is so important. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So what got you into Zionism?
I grew up in a very Zionistic home, and where there was a love for Israel and Zionism, and that's really what fostered it. And I think that's really where it begins, establishing a strong Jewish foundation of this knowledge and the connection among young people. I've heard many stories from Zionist students that I've had the privilege and pleasure of working with over the years, and who were led to their commitment to Israel through different paths. And it definitely, for me, started in my family at home. I went to day school. We're learning about the Jewish connection to Israel was learned from a biblical context. And after a family trip to Israel, my next experience was a semester of high school, and Israel was just a constant part of my life. So when I went to college, it stayed that way for me. All of the exposure that I had when I was growing up I continued to seek out opportunities for myself to learn and connect even more. But I would say a turning point for me was recognizing a responsibility, along with the passion, responsibility to do my part in ensuring that the Jewish people and the land of Israel that I love so deeply and commit to can't be taken for granted. And I'd say that that's also the biggest struggle. The biggest struggle of Zionism today lies with the younger generation, the high school students, the college students. It's sad, but it's true. The further removed we get from the miracle of Jews regaining sovereignty in the Holy Land for 2,000 years, the more it's taken for granted. And on top of that, it's a lack of education and a disconnect from Judaism. And so, like anything, if you don't value it, then you take it for granted. And the solution is education and reconnecting Jewish souls to the land of Israel.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say, because many people say, okay, that's very nice and it's very good, but the Jewish people, okay, they're not really people, they're more of religion, so why should they have their country? I mean, you don't see the Christians having a Christian country or Muslim having a Muslim country per se, and you're having a Jewish state. So what would you answer to that?
The deep connection and heritage that Jews have in the land of Israel it's just so much a part of the religion and us as peoplehood. It's Jews in the land of Israel go hand in hand. That's why establishing a strong foundation of this knowledge is so paramount. But you can't have one without the other. That's a part of our history and who we are as a people.
So let's say someone would say to you, okay, I understand that, but what about dual loyalty? I know that you Jewish people, so to speak, you're one hand you're loyal to the Jewish to America, but also aren't you more loyal to Israel? How do you balance both?
It's easy. I'm a proud American. I'm very proud to be an American citizen, and at the same time, I'm also very, very deeply connected to my roots and my heritage. Just like anybody has that sense of connection to their heritage. And for the Jews, the land is a very big part of that.
When I was even going to college, I did some college years here in the United States. I heard many times that Zionism is racism and Zionism causes genocide. Did you hear that when you went to college?
There's a lot of lies like that are spread on college campuses, and that's one of the big lies. Zionism is really the movement, the civil, civil rights movement of the Jewish people in the land, in their biblical land of ancestry. So it's a lie, and it's wrong on so many levels. And it's a dangerous lie because, people hear it and believe it. And it's just, there's no basis for it.
It's so true, because sometimes when I argue with people about Zionism, they say that we are just as bad as the Germans, the Nazis, and so forth, and we commit genocide. I do recall between 1939 to 1946, 45, you want to be more accurate, we lost 6 million of our people were murdered. But since 1948, the Palestinians have grown from 1.5 to 11 million people. So it seems as though the idea of genocide is not really happening at all. So yeah.
Right. So you could just look at those figures. The data proves that that's wrong. And also there's just no basis for it.
You're a leader, and our main topic today is Zionist leadership. What do you think it takes to be a leader? What kind of qualities does it take? And does someone has to be born a leader or acquire it, or both?
Both. I think there's both. Don't you agree?
I do. And what kind of attributes would you need as a leader to be a leader? Is it to be an organizer, to be an inspirer, or is it managerial? How does one can be a leader nowadays? Because the young kids, everybody wants to be a leader or something, And so, what would you advise college students?
I think it's somebody who seeks out opportunities for them to grow and to thrive based on their passion. It's actually kind of what leads our ZOA's campus work, is through empowerment and leadership opportunities. We like to think that, as parents, I'm a parent, and we like to think that we're the biggest influence in our children's lives, but the reality is it's really their friends and their peers. And that's really the best way that young people form, initially can form that make their mark as a leader, is among their friends and their peers. And that's really the strategy that ZOA Campus uses to educate and to reconnect young people, is through other young people. Education, especially on campus, is a big part of ZOA's mission. Do you want me to go into that a little more?
Please. I'm very, very interested.
Okay, it's also an opportunity to give a little plug.
Please, go ahead.
So the highlight of ZOA's campus program, I would say two highlights, is our Campus Fellowship and our Student Leadership Mission to Israel. And both of these programs are designed to empower students. The Leadership Mission gives them a deeper look at Israel's story, parts of the story that go beneath the surface, like visiting communities in Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank, and then meeting the people there. They have exclusive meetings with members of Knesset. They visit Israel's borders, and their experiences that they wouldn't get from other trips. Students who participate in ZOA Student Leadership Mission to Israel return to campus, and they lead their peers through Israel advocacy with the ZOA's guidance. And students who wish to take their involvement a step further, and the next level, would apply for ZOA's Campus Fellowship, for which we are currently accepting applications. So there's a little plug. And actually afterwards, or maybe now, if I'm able to share my screen, I can put it up. Should I put it up now?
Yes, sure, definitely.
Let me put it up.
That's a wonderful project you're talking about, to inspire college students, and it gave them this wonderful opportunity to want to express themselves, to acquire and gain leadership experience, and to develop the potential. And especially, like you said, the story of Israel. There's nothing greater than the story of the Jewish people. It's an amazing story of people that were that were once great and then oppressed and depressed and exiled and sent around the world, and yet
Absolutely.
remembering their identity. I think
also points to, and just learning that story, that's also, it's a way to explain and also zone in on why that lie that you mentioned before about Zionism is racism is so wrong. I mean, everywhere that Jews have been, we've been persecuted, and we've thrived and survived as a people. And now finally, we have a place where we can determine our own future, and we're in charge of our own freedom. And to take that away, that's really discriminatory against the Jewish people.
Right. That's racism. That really is racism.
That's what it is. Talk a little bit more about it. So we identify the pro-Israel leaders, the students who have made a commitment to advocating for Israel on campus. ZOA provides the training and webinars and educational material for the fellows to be in a position to effectively advocate and arrange Israel and Zionist programs and events for their peers on campus. And one of the messages that we relay to students is that we don't want them to ignore the challenges that they're facing on campus, which is, it's an easy thing to do, to just ignore it. And it can be intimidating to confront it. Unfortunately, there's a lot. We talked a little bit about, some examples before that pro-Israel students can face on campus. And ZOA's position is that it's important to address them and not always reactively. I'm talking about addressing difficult issues in a proactive way. The strategy is to turn the tables so that it's groups like the so-called Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP, which is a popular anti-Israel group on campus, so that they're put in a position that exposes how their real mission is the destruction of Israel. And they don't really care about Palestinian Arabs. They should be put in a position where they have to explain why they don't make a peep about atrocities like the Palestinian Authority sponsoring children's television programs promote violence, or naming streets after suicide bombers and terrorists, and their pay to slay policy that compensates jailed murderers for acts of terrorism against Jews, which is the more heinous the act, the more casualties, the higher the pay. Supporters of these types of groups, like SJP, are the ones who should be in a defensive position. They should be the ones who are put in a position to explain why, when Israel is defending itself and its people from rockets, or in any battle with Hamas, a terrorist organization, they're proclaiming support for Hamas, to turn the tables.
Good.
Sorry if I veered off. It's just the whole.
No, I think it's very, very important.
The whole picture.
You mentioned before justice, but what justice for the Jewish people,
Exactly.
We've been waiting for 2,000 years for justice,
Right.
And we deserve, after 2,000 years, been very, very nice to people. They've stepped on us, they trample on us, and yet we give in every generation to every host nation we were at, to help their science, their culture, their economy, everything else. And in return, we got persecution. We got, instead of abandonment or exile from one place to another place. And eventually we decided, like you said, to stand up and say enough's enough. What's the justice for us? And you're right, if rockets being launched at us, we have the right to defend ourselves like any other human being, like any other country would. And unfortunately, instead of people recognizing that, they defame us, they demean us.
Right. There's a lot at stake. And, thank God Israel has an incredible army, the Israel Defense Forces, that put their lives on the line all the time, and they're a powerful force, and thank God for them. There's another battle which is fought globally with, over minds and on hearts and with truth. And that's one that really anybody can have a role in. I don't want to predict the future of American Jewry, but we can identify challenges of what we're facing and what we've been talking about and what we've described and what we've seen on with data that all of this, everything that so many people have fought so hard for with blood, sweat, and tears, it's always at stake, even though there is a modern state of Israel where Jews can determine, we can determine our own future. It's always at stake. And there's polls that show that Jewish connection to the land of Israel is really, it's getting lost. So we can identify, if we can identify these challenges, which we have and we do, then we can figure out a way to respond and face them. That's what we do at the Zionist Organization of America. And as I see it, it's to educate and reconnection is what lies at the core.
Beautiful. You mentioned before, thanking God for everything God has done for us and is doing for us. It's interesting. Other countries or other religions are allowed to use their religious texts. In other words, the Palestinians can quote the Quran, and the Christians can quote the New Testament, and they can bring script text, so to speak, to prove their claim to the land. But if we dare bring the Torah or the Tanakh as our claim to land, no, that's religion. You can't do that. So you see that it's two-faced. So, and unfortunately, people don't want to recognize our rights. So going back to rights, you mentioned about what the ZOA does.
Yeah, well, just to make a point about that, I think that the religious connection, our biblical, through the Torah, is the strongest connection that there's going to be. In advocacy, I guess circles or organizations, and they'll talk about all of the tremendous contributions that Israel has made to the world with technology and humanitarian, and I've been cheering on the Israeli teams and the American teams in the Olympics, and there's really a lot to be proud of. All of that we should be proud of. But what's really, at the end of the day, what's really always going to be unbreakable is the Jewish and religious foundation that comes from the Torah.
So true. So true. So do you have any particular heroes that you grew up admiring in terms of the Zionist or movement that inspired you?
Yes, I do. I guess the biggest one would be Zev Jabotinsky, because he was able to see what was happening. He could see what was happening to the future of Jews in Europe, and he put out so many warnings about it, and unfortunately he was so right. And I wish that more people would have heeded his words and would have taken everything that he was saying, more seriously, because so many lives could have been saved. But I just he's one of the heroes. Probably we're talking about Zionist heroes.
Right. Yeah. What would you, if you had to right now make the ideal leader right now for our generation, what kind of leader would you imagine?
I guess the best leader is one that has a following, right?
How do we do that? How do we get someone to have a following? Is it in terms of What do you think? Someone has to be charismatic or intellectual or both? Or
Yeah, of course. Of course. Whoever people see see a power in, and it's and that there's that they're speaking the truth. I just any and it can come from anything. It's something that people have a natural skill for, but can also be developed. And it could be anybody. I don't think you necessarily have to look to see who that person could be, because anybody who's listening right now could be that leader.
right.
I think every single Jew, no matter what they do in life, no matter their livelihood, should carve out a role for himself or herself to benefit our people, the Jewish nation. And for me, one of those roles is a dedication to Zionism, and through ZOA, telling the truth in the face of so many lies. And that's what I've devoted my life to, Israel advocacy. And I wouldn't be doing it if it's just an important cause. A lot of people say it's a lost cause, but it's the opposite. It's a crucial cause.
I like that, crucial cause.
It's a crucial
very good,
cause.
very nice, a crucial
well,
cause.
just, as Jews like to complain and worry. I don't know why. It's just somehow it's part of who we are, not a part that we should be proud of. But it's at the end of the day, Israel advocacy is important work because it works, and because the Jewish people, we know from our history, from the Torah, from God Almighty, that will always prevail. So it's a winning cause too.
When let's say you may have a down moment, what inspires you to come out of that? Oh, it's a hopeless day, I can't come out of it. And all I tried to convince people about Israel and Zionism, and yet they still think these terrible things. What brings you up to again? Yeah, I'm going to fight again, a new day. I'm not going to fall for that voice of doubt.
Because it's never lost. I mean, the Jewish people, if any people has been down and gone up again, it's the Jewish people. We've seen miracles. It's part of our history. And if there's listeners who don't feel that way and don't know that, then they just have to learn or relearn who we are.
I think you said a wonderful idea right now, that basically, if you think about it, all the main holidays, is about every single holiday, that the major ones, is about rededication. Every few months we rededicate ourselves, be it Hanukkah time, be it Purim time, and be it Simchas Torah time. We rededicate ourselves to our identity. It's a constant, self-empowerment. And maybe that's a secret on one hand, that unfortunately many people don't have that. They lose that connection to that self-empowerment as a Jewish nation, as a Jewish people. Do you see?
Right. None of it has to be recreated.
No.
It's
Correct.
all there.
It's all there. Do you see that there one day will be really a divide between Israeli Jewry and American Jewry, or they come together at the bridges? Because it's two different mentalities. It's two different realities. Is the way we can bridge the two?
Well, that would really be a tragedy. It would be a tragedy if that happened, and maybe that's one of the biggest challenges, to make sure that doesn't happen. There's no reason why it should, because we're really all one people. So we're located in different places geographically, but we're all one people.
Do you think that it's true we're one people, but there is a different mentality between the Israeli mentality and the American mentality, not being in terms of the Jewish aspect of it, just in terms of mentality? What would be the something common that we could unite? Is it possible? Example, I don't see many American Jews learning Hebrew. Back in the day, people were learning Hebrew all the time. There was Hebrew school, people relearn Hebrew, and it's not as popular as it used to be. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you think?
Well, and it could be, I don't know if learning Hebrew is the main connection, but we talked about polls and data that's showing Jews who are disconnecting from our roots, but it also shows that Israel is a common factor that probably is the most unifying
Factor there is.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any events that this year the ZOA plan to do, let's say for college students or around the country that we can know of, that will inspire, that we can look forward to?
Well, for Zionist Organization of America, we've been doing lots of virtual events the past year and a half, and God willing, we'll be able to have our biggest event of the year, our gala in December in Manhattan.
Wow,
which is, I really hope that we'll be able to do it.
I'm sure you will be able to do it.
Yeah, I hope so. If we do it, it's going to be on December 19th. If places are open and we're able to make it happen.
Wow.
Save the date. And for young people, like I said, our fellowship program is the one that I'm going to promote, and it's an incredible opportunity for students who are looking for leadership roles or empowerment, and they also get a stipend. And I know that while applications are being accepted, they're accepted on a rolling basis. So I'll send you I'll send you the information and the link that people can.
Excellent. Appreciate that. I really appreciate all your time and your effort you do on behalf of the ZOA, what you do on behalf of the Jewish people, your commitment and your courage. To be a leader, especially within Zionism nowadays, one has to be courageous, even beforehand, but even nowadays, because all that terrible bad press that we get, it's all vicious lies and lies upon lies. And that you're able to stand against it and be a dam against it, for the flood of lies is really saying Hebrew Yasher Koyach, more power to you.
I so appreciate that. That's so kind, and I totally appreciate the words of support. It honestly doesn't feel like courage, when it's something that and it's truth. It doesn't feel like a courageous thing to do. It just feels like the right thing to do. And also with that being said, I'm so happy to hear from anybody who wants to be involved and to learn more. Anyone can go to ZOA's website to learn more, which is ZOA.org. And anyone is also welcome to reach out to me personally at florida@ZOA.org.
What a wonderful invitation. Please, everyone, please take that invitation and please have one-on-one emails with Sharona. She's inspiring, she's courageous, and she's a person who cares about the Jewish people. And you have an amazing opportunity now to all our listeners to be part of this amazing story, the Jewish story. Each one of us who is born into the Jewish nation or becomes part of the Jewish nation is given an amazing opportunity to fulfill the role of the hero, the heroine. And that was always been the case from the time of Abraham Avinu and Sarah Meno. Abraham and Sarah are the forefather of the Jewish people and the foremother of the Jewish people who started it all. They were all heroic figures who stood up against the tyranny of the world. And that's what the Jewish people are all about. We stand up against the tyranny of the world. We are the light unto the nations. And that's one of the reasons why people are so afraid of us, because we stand for the truth, we stand for justice and kindness and for love and all the God's amazing values. So thank you again.
So much to be proud of.
Yes.
Thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Rabbi, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Kotu. Please send me the links.